Today's Legal on 4, a home isn't just the biggest asset for many people when they're alive. It can represent the biggest item in your estate when you're gone. It's important that you understand your deed can control who gets your property when you die. So we turn to legal expert Craig Wisdom now. Last time we talked about how a deed defines home ownership, this time how it affects ownership when you die. And it's really important to take a moment and think of the hypotheticals and your situation, because everybody's situation is different.
That's
right,
absolutely right. I can't say one of these ways is right. It depends what your situation is and what you want to have happen. But you better understand what your deed says about who gets your real estate when you die, because it might not be what you want.
And don't assume that everybody's going to do the right thing and the fair thing.
If you do that, you don't need lawyers, and lawyers do pretty well. So
yeah,
yes, you can't quite rely on that.
Okay, so let's first talk about the deed in your name only.
Yeah,
when would you want something like that?
Well, this is the simple situation. Especially if you're not married, the most typical thing is you have it just in your name. Now, nothing automatically happens to that property when you die. It'll go according to your will, or if you don't have a will, it'll go according to intestate succession, which is your family that the law guesses gets your stuff, and it has to go through probate.
This gets tied up.
Right?
It
goes through probate, but people use tied up to make it sound like it's worse than it is. Sometimes a simple probate may be the easiest way to take care of something, so it's not as bad as some people think. Okay. And at least there's not going to be anything automatic happen with that property.
But the will is always the best, because it defines everything.
Exactly.
It spells it out.
If you have the will, that's going to say who gets it.
All right. Deed with joint tenants, right of survivorship.
Right.
That's when you're, say, married, right?
Exactly. And for a married couple, it might also be called community property with right of survivorship. It's essentially the same thing. You can also have joint tenancy with right of survivorship with someone else,
like
a child, or a significant other you're not married to. It can basically be anybody.
What if you have more than one child?
Well, if you have joint tenancy with one child, they're going to get it automatically when you die. The right of survivorship says the last person standing owns the property, period. So, husband and wife, even if they've got kids from a different marriage, it's all going to go to the survivor automatically, and the decedent's kids aren't going to get anything.
And that can create some conflict with those who are not involved in receiving the property.
Absolutely. If the deceased spouse put a lot of money into the property and they've got kids from a prior marriage, their kids legally aren't going to get anything. It's all going to go to the survivor.
Deed with others, no right of survivorship, tenants in common is what they call it.
Exactly. It's basically you've got more than one person and there's no right of survivorship. You each own a little part of it, and nothing automatically is going to happen to that portion when you die. It's going to go according to your will.
Do you have to have the will in that particular?
Same thing. It's better if you have a will, as always, to say who gets your stuff.
And make sure it's updated, right?
Exactly.
Beneficiary deed, extra document. This is something kind of relatively new?
Relatively new. It's a good way for people that say, look, I don't want to have to go through a probate when I die, but I've got a home. You don't want to put it in joint tenancy with your kids, because then your kids immediately own part of that house. If they get sued, their creditors can get at it. You need their agreement to do anything, so that's not good. A beneficiary deed says, look, you'll automatically get it when I die without probate, but while I'm alive, I'm the only owner, and if I want to change this beneficiary deed later, I can. So you're not giving up any control when you do a beneficiary deed, but it may be a simple way to avoid probate if you've got a simple situation and you've got real estate.
Simple, really?
Relatively speaking.
Everything's relative.
Yes.
Thank you, Craig. Okay, we'll see you next time. All right,